My name is Parvana by Deborah ELLIS. This story itself is one of the most interesting books that I've ever written. It is advertised as the final book in the Breadwinner series, which is pretty misleading because it is not the final book in the Breadwinner series. There was a 9-year interval inside, My Name is Parvana and Mud City, which was most likely worth the wait, but I'm pretty sure it was a little 11 years outdated since the Taliban was out. The Taliban still existed then, sure, but they were nothing more than just in the past. In fact, when I was born, the Taliban was just a thing in the past, and it wasn't until I was 10 years old, that was when the Taliban came back, and that was when I first learned of the Taliban. In fact, that was the age that I was allowed to learn about the Taliban, and then I got real experiences there. Living in this era, it was pretty fascinating for me, and in this case, it is one of the most fascinating books I've ever read. Interrogation. That is how this book starts. In fact, how this starts off is that it doesn't really just end up where Shazia went off. It takes a few months after Shazia ended Mud City, and even then, we still don't know what happened in the beginning. Firstly, we don't go ahead and get the story in chronological order. Sure, we get this in chronological order, but it goes somewhat like this. It goes something in this order. This is chronological events, but this is how the story goes and proceeds. This pink-colored one is where those two events go ahead and merge together. The story goes ahead and starts off with Parvana being captured and being interrogated and being asked, "Is your name Parvana? Is your name Parvana? Is your name Parvana? Is your name?" As she goes ahead and asks her names from the list that she had wrote in her diary. In the end, they're all kind of worth it, I guess. Here's how it goes. It starts off with an interrogation, and then we go into a flashback of what happened before. Right after Shazia went ahead and escaped Mud City, but in Parvana's point of view. And then we go back to a flashback of Parvana being interrogated again, this time being asked some names, and also being asked to go ahead and try to read something, and they're trying to go ahead and coax her and convince her. And then we get another flashback. Lastly, we go ahead and have the angry little major saying "Are you a terrorist or not? Read her diaries. She's a terrorist." What a very stereotypical American man. And then next up, we have another flashback. And finally, and this flashback, we get, the part where Parvana is captured by the American military, thinking that she's the one who bombed her school. Wow, she built her own school, for heaven's sake. And then we get to this part where Parvana is in chains and then being transferred towards another place, to another prison. And it was there that there was so much more that really could happen. That was when Mrs. Weira, the angry little Mrs. Weira, went ahead and, saved Parvana, just arguing with the major for a few minutes before being released. There she met Shazia one more time, and boom, that was such a good experience. In the end, that's pretty much all that happened in My Name is Parvana. Afterwards, Shazia and Parvana go ahead and talk about their future lives, saying, finally, we should go to France. And then they go ahead and say that maybe we should just save a few more girls first. Agreed. And that was when they go ahead and start saving more girls. And that is when we stopped the Breadwinner. And the Breadwinner series has concluded. Yay! But not exactly quite. Of course, we have one more book that we have to discuss, but we'll talk about that book later. For now, think of this as really the final book in the Breadwinner series, at least in the main Breadwinner series. We get a lot of different stories here. We finally go ahead and think about things in the other point of view. We don't think of the Americans as the saviors of Afghanistan. We sometimes even have to see them as the people who, along with the Taliban, destroyed and tried to control Afghanistan, which is not something that we really want to enjoy. The Taliban was bad, but the Americans were, bad too. The Americans themselves had prejudices a lot, and the Taliban, they may have been a pretty much too Islamic, but at least the Americans go ahead and think about things their own way. The Americans go ahead and are paranoid about everything. As a result, they go ahead and think of everything as two things. Black and white. I'm sorry you can't see the black. But the Breadwinner, at least this book itself, is able to go ahead and tell us so much more than just the usual Breadwinner story. In this extra long special that was supposed to be the end and the finale of the Breadwinner series, we go ahead and learn everything about the lives there. We go about how people were murdered, how people were prosecuted, how Afghanistan people were prosecuted by their own fellow Afghans, how Parvana's mother was murdered mainly because she was the principal of the school that she and Parvana helped build and open, by people who oppose the school, saying that this is not girls' stuff, this is only for men. Girls should not go to school, they should only learn how to sew and cook, which is very outdated. Parvana said that to those men's faces, and I'm pretty sure you will regret that if you do that. But in the end, that is worth it. My Name is Parvana is an epic finale towards the Breadwinner series, and I really, really wish that I would be able to see them, what happened to them 20 years later. And I got my wish. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Hunter and Sean. I hope to see you guys soon, and until next time, Sean out, peace. Bye bye. Coming soon.